Hello, testing.
Hi, Ahmed. Hi, Farah. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes. Hello.
Hi. صباح النور. انتوا وين؟ انا بلندن بقى، عندي الساعة 12 ونص.
أنا
في دبي
بتورنتو
4:30.
اهلا حبيبة.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
السلام.
Happy to see Farah, you managed to get yourself sorted out.
Yes.
Okay, so الأخ الأخير واحد اسمه إسماعيل الحنطي. Do you pronounce it
نعم.
الحنطي? Okay. رابح ولا ربيح؟ رابح. ربيع.
اي نعم. ما في عاب باللغة اللاتينية. So
Yeah.
some they put E, some they put A، بس بيطلع ربيعة. فخليناها على ال H is easier.
All right.
Time divided, how is it divided between us? Is it equally divided? How?
Yes.
Who's going to organize this in terms of stopping us from overrunning the time?
Me.
Okay, that's fine. Great. Roughly how long do we have per person?
والله الوقت مش كبير يعني. I was surprised ما شاء الله يعني 4 كل واحد فيكم أحسن من الثاني. عطينا from 4:40 to 5:15 only, not even 45 minutes, not even half an hour يعني, you know. 35 minutes, is it?
Yeah.
45 to all of us. To all
35.
of us. 35.
35.
To all of us.
Yes, to all. Yes.
Yani on average, what we're talking about, 7 minutes in total, roughly.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of questions each, right, Dr. Habiba?
Okay.
Yes.
So it's around a couple of minutes each answer.
How is the vaccination going on in UK?
Oh dear, I had mine. I didn't react to it properly. It's going well. I think one of the best in terms of the number of people. Maybe in Dubai better than us, of course. You guys, you were far ahead, or Abu Dhabi. Here, I think we reached 50% roughly, maybe, of the population, nearly. So it's going well, but I reacted to it. It gave me so much fatigue. 2 days of fever, 2 days of shivering and things. They said it's the immunity system because I had COVID earlier last year. And I think I reacted to that very well. That was about 2 weeks ago, roughly. Yeah. Hi, Dominica.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's so good to have all of you with us. Now, when we start in just about
Thank you, Dominica. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Staying healthy, that's the best you can do these days, right?
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we start in 3 minutes, I am just going to start with introducing you, Habiba, and then I will hand over and turn off my video, and then you can bring in all the other panelists.
All right. Thank you.
Excellent.
How many people are you having joining virtually, Dominica?
I believe we're somewhere around the 200 mark of registrants, so it's a good size event. I am told that
Yes.
everyone participating in the event can see and hear us right now, so I will just flag that as we wait. I thought we were on,
Right.
on mute, but... It's always a bit of a learning process with new platforms and trying to replicate how we can be together without being together in person. So
A year later, still a learning curve.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a totally new era after COVID-19. Definitely it's not the same like before. We'll go back to different normal, put it this way.
Yeah, certainly for our global network, it's been, on the one hand, it has been quite good to be able to connect more frequently on video and bring everybody together without the costs and the carbon of travel. So there are certainly benefits. And I think just we will get used to, you know, seeing each other more virtually and getting all the systems working. So there'll be some pros.
Yeah. The thing is, with large number of Zoom meetings, the pressure is higher on productivity. People, because you used to have 1 meeting, 2 meetings a week to produce the next week what the meeting was about. Now everyone's expecting everything, and you have 3, 4 meetings during the day, and you have to produce for that. Is not having a great impact at all from that point of view. So we need to readjust.
Yeah, you don't have the time to commute to your next meeting.
No, it's true.
Okay, we are going to get started. We're on the hour now. So hopefully everyone's here.
Somebody's missing from the team, right?
Sorry?
I say somebody's missing from the team, Mr. Ismael Al-Hinti.
From the panel?
Yes.
Who are we missing from our panel?
I believe Dr. Ismail.
Ismael?
Yeah, I think he might not be able to join us.
Oh, I think I
see.
just saw that. Yes, I saw a message that he is unwell. Okay.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning,
I'm sorry
Dr.
to hear that.
Hello, Ahmed.
Hey.
Okay, I see the messages now directing everybody back to the stage. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you're here with us and it's not too challenging navigating the platform. In this session, we will be addressing the topic of retrofitting and how it can enhance the performance of existing buildings, reducing their carbon footprint in order to help them achieve net zero. So I would like to welcome our moderator, Habiba Al-Marashi. Habiba is the co-founder and chairperson of Emirates Environmental Group. She single-handedly established the Arab CSR network in 2004. She also co-founded the Emirates Green Building Council and serves as its treasurer and board member. Habiba has been actively associated in leadership roles in many global bodies, such as the UN Global Compact, UNEP, the Global Reporting Initiative Stakeholder Council, and many others. And she is also an active supporter of women leadership in sustainability in the region. So with that introduction, Habiba, welcome. Thank you for joining us. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Dominica. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And I would like to congratulate the organizers for rolling out such a wonderful and timely topic. How can retrofitting bring net zero buildings up front? And as we were discussing, chatting before the event with COVID, it has really brought together people more frequently, virtually albeit, but we do meet more frequently, and the number of meetings that we attend much more than physical events. Anyway, going to the topic, COVID-19 may have paused the global economy, the world's economy, but it certainly has not paused or stopped climate change. If we, the human beings, do not stop that from happening, the consequences for the world will be profound. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report states that the Arab region is one of the most vulnerable regions of the world to the impact of climate change. With evidence that we got from the climate change assessment report, says the average mean change in temperature is expected to increase between 1.9 to 2.6 by the middle of this century. Buildings usually, research shows that they contribute to 39% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But in the Middle East, that number is higher. This is indeed concerning, given that the United Nations has projected that by 2050, 68% of the world's population will be living in urban areas, especially within this region. However, not all is gloom. There are a lot of opportunities of using the built environment to stem the increase of greenhouse gases. The importance of building towards the path of decarbonization has been seen through the net zero carbon buildings commitment, which calls upon businesses, upon organizations, upon cities, states, and regions to reach net zero operating emissions in their portfolios by 2030, and to advocate for all buildings to be net zero by 2050. While a certain few will know what is net zero, many out there are still very in the dark of what does really this mean. So what does net zero mean though? At its most basic, net zero means producing carbon emissions during the life cycle of a building, which can be mitigated in equal measure. The amount of greenhouse gas emission from the atmosphere by, for example, planting trees or using technologies such as carbon capture and storage. When we look at a net zero carbon building, it will be mainly energy efficient building. Technology should play a key role in delivering an ultra low carbon energy building. Maximizing energy and thermal efficiency are key consideration when looking at the specification of the construction materials that goes into the building, choosing the design of the mechanical systems that are used in the building. However, this can be costly and it can be expensive. Therefore, government policies and regulations should prioritize measures to drive the main issue here, the affordability and adoption of existing low carbon technologies, and also support innovation in new technologies. When you look at the bigger picture, it's one of the most effective tools to stabilize climate change through the drastic reduction of carbon emissions. Climate scientists have claimed that if carbon emissions are not monitored and reduced by 2030, the risks of natural disasters will increase significantly in scope and in numbers as well. And unfortunately, God forbid, it may reach an irreversible point. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report draws attention that this tipping point is between 1.8 to 3.6 degrees Celsius. So against this background, I would like to really welcome on board wonderful team that I have had the pleasure of knowing them last week and interacting with them virtually. And today we want to welcome them board and hear their expertise. Before we go into that, I would like to ask all our attendees to not forget to interact with us using the social media handles at World GBC, as well as hashtag, which is used for today for the Congress, is hashtag MEA Green Buildings 2021. So please register that and keep yourselves active with us on those platforms. Being a woman, I am always biased to my speeches and to my type. So I would like to start with Farah Yassine. Farah is a wonderful lady that I have come to know her very closely in the year 2020, when she was elected as the Vice Chair of Emirates Green Building Council. And Farah, her main position and job is Sustainable Resource Management Lead, Environment and Sustainability, Middle East, WSP. She currently manages the sustainability discipline in addition to leading the energy and waste service lines. Farah's expertise covers a wide range of development typologies, including residential, commercial, hospitality, industrial, and mixed-use developments, where she has been involved in the management of sustainable design of the construction and operational aspects. Throughout her career, Farah has been involved in occupational psychology assessments and now focuses on sustainability, health, and well-being in the built environment. Our next speaker will be, inshallah, Rabih Al-Fadel. He's the director, ZEF Concepts Limited. He has a unique understanding of sustainability with over 15 years experience in low energy designs, in low carbon emission initiatives, including energy buildings, passive design, efficient systems, renewable energy, building management system, calculation methodology, and the list, mashallah, goes on. Rabih's 26 years experience encompasses projects design and development, technical implementation and management, environmental design, sustainability framework for projects in Europe, Middle East, USA, and Africa. Last but not the least, our speaker is Mr. Ahmed Al-Musa. He's the Green Retrofit Programs Associate, Jordan Green Building Council. He's a project management professional and a lead Green Associate with a civil engineering background. He has demonstrated history of working in project management, in the management consultations, in the green sector, and in the construction industry. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board, and I will start with my questions. I have a general question first, which I will ask you all to give me a 1-minute answer, please. Is it possible to achieve net zero through retrofits? How can this be scaled and rolled out on a wider and commercial basis? Farah, I will start with you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Habiba. I think the short answer is yes. Am I being optimistic? Probably, but we have data that can back this up. The Emirates Green Building Council has rolled out a very detailed study called Advanced Deep Retrofits in the UAE, where we have essentially surveyed various stakeholders from government to consultants to ESCOs to material suppliers, and we've also included developers and project owners. And the methodology is quite detailed of the study, so I won't get into too much detail, but the results are overwhelmingly positive, where 84% of the respondents agree that more than 50% energy savings are possible in the UAE through deep retrofits, and 64% of the developers agree that deep retrofits are possible. So if we're talking about net zero, and we're talking that right now we have the capability, the technology, and the knowledge to undertake deep retrofits, then there is no reason why net zero cannot be achieved, and in the near future, if I'm optimistic, but it is a goal that can be achieved.
Thank you very much. Rabih? You are muted.
Sorry. Yes, in short, definitely it's a yes answer. Otherwise, I'd be sitting down here with my white hair, spend all this 30-something years actually for sustainability. But I think it's yes with difficulties. And if you look at the interventions, I'm not going to add much to what Farah was saying, which is this is definitely it's a yes, based on different research, is it's more difficult when it comes to retrofit. And if you look at the hierarchy of interventions, starting from the passive design and going to efficiency, then going to renewables, there is a limitation on the first two, how far we can go. And then you can go to the renewables, of course, but that will be an embodied energy element that you have to think about if you want to be very honest about with share. But the biggest impact and intervention will be the human factor. If not, that element is being tackled from a tradition, from culture, tradition, thinking, from the way how you can connect and exchange, because this is an element here we need to think about. Rethinking, rewiring, like we talk rewiring the economy, is rewiring the thinking, how we have to think about it, and how we're going to really be introduced to this new economy and new connectivity on a human level.
Thank you very much. Ahmed?
Yeah, well, I would like to reinforce what my colleague panelists said, because yes, it is doable. And I think if we aspire to achieve our 2050 targets of reaching net zero in most of countries, I think that's essential. The way to reach there, though, is full of challenges, and those challenges could be on regulatory context. Some of them are on behavioral context, and I believe, and some of them are. So it is a multi-factorial issue that needs to be tackled from different, let's say, fronts. So yeah, it's doable, definitely doable, but it's not an easy task.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Mr. Rabih again. You have worked, mashallah, across several different regions, such as Europe, Middle East, and Africa, with different regulations, codes, and infrastructures. What are some of the main barriers you have seen across these different markets for progressing building efficiencies and retrofits, and how do you think they can be overcome? You are on mute.
Apologies. It's a multitude of things, and there is a mosaic of barriers. The minute you start to go and do different projects, different places, you will see different challenges. But if you want to really summarize some of them in general, it takes you to two things. When we were doing some, what we call it, a rating for different countries, how to make it a green. The issues with that, everyone was tended to go for new buildings. We know that 80% of probably the emission in the construction, within the construction industry, is the existing stock. And then the problem that we are faced, I'm going to say things non-traditional, unconventional, is the way our engineers and architects they have been trained. It's not just about technologies. You know, I've designed wind turbines, I've designed different things within, but the biggest challenge is how you have to really connect with the human level. That's why people were shunning away from retrofit. So when you talk retrofit, people will say, oh gosh, A, corruption, certain places, B, regulations. You are interacting more with the human, and you have different sectors. So it's a bigger scale that engineers and architects, less degree architect, more to it engineers, are not trained to deal with that. This is one side of it. So that's the biggest challenge that I see within the retrofit, one side of it. The other one is the existing...
What about the mentality? Sorry to interrupt. What about the mentality? Because when you look in Europe, for example, you see buildings, you know, a building of 500 years is normal, you know,
absolutely.
And it's very well preserved and very well protected. But is that the case in the Middle East? Is that the case in Africa?
There isn't.
And if not, why?
Yeah, I think there is an issue. I mean, I'm not going to go into the political aspects of that very one, but there is a lack of what I would say the heritage value, which is that it doesn't seem that is embedded within, let's say, the Middle East or even within Africa. And that would take us to different aspects when we talk about retrofit. Retrofit, we have to think maintenance. We have to think feasibility. We have to think impact of measures within themselves, between each other. We have to think of this hierarchy as we described earlier on the energy side of it. And of course, the heritage value, which is absolutely important, because the minute you say to someone, maintenance of your flat or of your building or of your house, if the person you are dealing with has this, I would say, passion to do that, you are in for gold with the person to cut down anything you can talk about. When there is no much, I would say, connection to the heritage value is a big issue. And then we have to go why, so that is not for the topic at the moment. But this is something very, very important, to cherish and to value what was done before and to improve it. And that's the difference in cultures between when we look at the Western world and we talk about in our places here. And everything is new for
Thank
us.
you.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Farah, I will come to you. Very rarely do we see retrofits in this region look at replacing insulation and facades. While there's considerable investments required, the return on investment can be attractive. What do you think is necessary, as building on what Rabih said, to change people's perception in looking at retrofits to include these types of measures? And can it be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely kind of an appetite from the market, from whether it is suppliers, consultants, advisors. But I think what is lacking is, and I think Rabih, you kind of touched on that, is the lack of, maybe I'll say, landlord interest or people who kind of own the buildings. What is, although you're saying that there is an interesting return on investment, and there is, the study, at least for the UAE, showed that the payback period is 6 to 10 years, which is really not, which is a reasonable payback. We see lack of interest, and it could be kind of lack of awareness. And I think the point that Rabih also talked about was kind of the behavior and the culture change. There's a shift that needs to happen. If we are all planning to get our all the existing buildings to be decarbonized by 2050, which is the global goal, then we need, not only on the consultancy level or NGO level and all the various, also need the decision makers, whether these are legislators, government, and developers. We also need their buy-in. And that is something that I believe we are right now, at least in the UAE, in the process of getting. The study that was published shows positive results and is being discussed with government officials. I think what is lacking is some kind of probably not necessarily legislation. The guidelines exist. The Emirates Green Building Council wrote retrofitting guidelines. The training exists. Emirates Green Building Council offers training, but it's more their buy-in into seeing the benefits of that, whether they're for decarbonization, but also the monetary incentives that can be as a result of these retrofits.
Thank you very much. Ahmed, the Jordan Green Building Council retrofitted around 50 homes in rural communities around the country. What were the challenges and how did you manage to overcome them? And what is the way forward? You are on mute?
This is a vast and virtual environment. So yes, we did the retrofit of 50 homes through the Green Affordable Homes project, and actually we did also another project that was laid the ground or made the design for an energy efficiency retrofit program for Jordan with a certification scheme. The main challenges, I would say, and they intersect with what we've been discussing. I would say the number one challenge is code related and regulatory related. And that is twofold. The first fold is that most of the existing stock, I would say in Jordan, and I think that applies to many countries as well in our region, that most of the existing buildings do not really comply with the codes. Especially if we're talking about residential stock. And that makes the challenge to, when you want to make the retrofit, that you need to do some more extra work to achieve the results that you need. And the second challenge, I would say, that, or the second fold of this code-related challenge, is that the codes themselves, they do not fulfill the requirements of green buildings or net zero buildings. So you have this gap that we need to start stepping into, and to fill this gap on a regulatory framework in order to be able to achieve our goals, like voluntary.
So Ahmed, can you give me points? Ahmed, can you give me points of what do you think is the way forward?
Yeah, sure.
Who should do what?
Who should do what? Well, that's a big question. As I said, on regulatory framework, there should be advocacy from the let's say the green society, in order to start introducing to move from voluntary into more compulsory, I would say, framework in regards to green and net zero regulations. Also, in the market, I believe one of the challenges we faced actually was about the market availability of materials and technologies, and the trained and skilled laborers. And those two challenges could be handled by providing more vocational training for skilled labor to be able to implement the technologies on ground, and by having people like our members and partners who are willing to introduce new technologies and the required technologies to be able to implement the retrofit, the required retrofits to achieve net zero. Moreover, of course, you need awareness. You need to tap into the human factor that we've been talking about. So here we're talking about getting the buy-in of the people and convincing them of the feasibility. And here, actually, let's say we resolved that challenge through grant-based retrofits. So that could be equivalent to providing incentives for retrofitting.
So the grants were provided by financial institutions. Were they provided by government?
It was.
Who provided the grants?
At the time, it was DFID, UK Aid. But you can expand on that. I would give that as an example, but you can take that an example of incentives that could be introduced by governments or other donor agencies, or finding other creative financial solutions, like you can find some of them in Europe, where the retrofit company would get its payback from the savings that it achieved.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. This is really very, thank you. This is very enlightening, because you are giving us a live example of what has happened in the region. With the 50 villas that or residential that you did in these rural communities, how was the reaction of the local community themselves? Were they cooperative? Were they understanding? Were they eager to enhance their buildings? And if for Jordan Green Building Council, what will be the takeaway from all that? And what is your strategy moving forward? Is there another plan of doing more in urban areas? Because you have chosen the most difficult. You have chosen not a low-lying fruit. It's the other way. You have gone to rural areas where the knowledge about energy efficiency, about net zero buildings is not there. So you have chosen the worst case scenario to work on. I'm sorry, but this is very interesting for me.
Yeah, sure.
Can you please share with us this information?
Yeah, sure. Actually, the project targeted rural areas, and it was affordable homes project. So let's say that one of the major changes that happened, first of all, as I said, one of the challenges was getting the buy-in of the people, and that was resolved through the incentivizing or the grants. Part of the challenge was about the disruptive nature of the retrofits. And in order to achieve that, we reached out to CBOs and local organizations that helped us reach to people and to be transparent with them and be more effective in our communication. Now, the effects of the retrofits, I would say there was an economical effect, and that could be reflected on savings on bills, electricity and water bills. And there was a social and well-being effect, and that manifested in reported increased happiness an improved comfort in homes, improved indoor environmental quality. And also some people reported that they were more confident about their homes. Pre-COVID situation, they were receiving more visitors and felt more comfortable in receiving more visitors into their homes. And on the larger scale, I think one of the most important impacts is the project created local job opportunities, where the contractors and the labor were from the community itself, and that was really good. And also the project targeted the refugee community within the community. So it created a cohesion between the local hosts and their refugee brothers and sisters. And that was a very
Thank you, Ahmed. I'm very conscious of the timing.
Yeah.
So I will have to stop you there. My questions to Rabih. The Great Wall of Africa will run for 8,000 kilometers, and it will cross 14 countries, which is one of the interesting projects that you have worked. What is it, and how is it related to buildings?
Yeah, I think the project is initiated a long time ago as idea, and it started more or less with African Union leaders at some point, concentrating on trees to stop the desert to come down all the way to eat more of the Sahel side. So it's all the way from Djibouti to the Senegal side. So that's how it started, and I was privileged to be appointed by what you call ecological and environmental ministry within Nigeria to look at it with a team that came from Columbia University, myself and two other guys. And what we did, we rethought the whole thing in terms of, rather than looking at trees, is no one can fight the desert by just saying trees. Is finding this ecological landscape in relation to human being, and that's why we reshifted everything around villages, and therefore is we enhancing the development of these villages, and to have that sort of relation between the agriculture, traditional agriculture, and trading communities, and the ecological land that we want to develop to be aggressive against the desert. And to enhance that, that takes me back to a few things that you need to really empower people within themselves is, of course, the economy, which is based on what they are good at, in that sort of length of what used to be the traditional trading routes coming from Sudan, even those days, all the way to the other side of the continent. It was one of the most vital routes with so many civilizations within that very one. Now, to add, to say, I mean, this is not the typical, I would say, project to link directly to retrofit, but I see it differently. I see it, if you look at the major problem that we have, going back to my point on the retrofit, is the mindset. And if you look at it further, is the culture and the tradition, how people are dealing with their homes, that they can create movement to make changes within regulations and everything. But to go back to this point, when we have the world, about 39–40% of the world is rural area, with a huge flux into the urban area. The urban area's mentality is not ready to take all this number of population into changing the mentality, especially coming in without any mindset of heritage or maintenance or anything of that sort. That create the shanty towns all over, and that create another problem when it comes to retrofit. And when we talk about the scale of the Great Green Wall, which is, I hope, shouldn't be that name, should be something different. Hopefully we'll change it one day. We are talking about potentially 400 million within the Sahel. So this is a huge amount in a continent that majority of it, I would say, it depends different country, but we have a large percentage of rural area, far larger than the world itself. So imagine the shift that will happen from rural to urban area with not prepared mindset or not prepared maintenance thinking, not prepared to anything. So here, this is one side of it. The second one, my vision is going back to retrofit and going back to humanity and connectivity. We can't get carbon zero if we think we can create a ring fence around each country or each district. It's about exchanging eventually the carbon trading between the different places. And therefore, we are part of a global city of a smart grid. And therefore, the rural area will be in the next generation to come, it will provide us, if they are well trained, with the blueprint of the smart grid that will lead to carbon zero. And that is first one of the links that I can take it to the retrofit in that sense. It's a long way to go, but the impact is huge. And if we lose the opportunity, we have no chance to come out with carbon zero because of the behavior of that.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Farah, you know, the Emirates Green Building Council, end of last year, we issued the deep retrofit study, and you mentioned it in your answer to the first question. Can you tell us what do these results, you know, share with us some of these results, and what do these, from your perspective, mean to you, and do you believe the market in the UAE is ready for this?
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Habiba. I do.
Towards deep retrofitting.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, the results were really positive, where, you know, a huge percentage, 84% of the respondents, and again, it's important to note that we have surveyed a variety. So we're not only talking, for example, consultants only believe that it's achievable. We're also talking about ESCOs, suppliers, and government entities. And then we've also went and had a deep dive with developers themselves, who are kind of the decision makers. And they also, 64% of them believe that deep retrofits, you know, are achievable. So that's a really great sign of kind of market maturity, I would say, and market understanding. Now, whether we are ready or not, the study revealed that although 70% of stakeholders say the technology for deep retrofit is available, 60% of them highlighted the need for more technical knowledge and experience for deep retrofit. So although the technology is there, we might not have all the required skills to do that. And I think there are various learning opportunities in the market, whether it's the EGBC retrofitting program or RSB's potential new kind of training or information about that. So that is something that we can work on together. What the results show is that there is definitely a huge appetite in the market, and I think one of the things that we keep mentioning is, I think that's something from my own perspective, my own line of work, is we can design all of these buildings that are, you know, we can redesign and retrofit buildings, but one thing is, do people know how to use them? And whether we're talking about residential, so whether we're talking about, you know, replacing facades or lighting or so on and so forth, or whether we're actually talking at a much bigger commercial institution, such as, let's say, a mall or an office building, one of the problems that we faced is kind of the lack of education, or that step between design, construction, and operations, where people who operate the building don't always necessarily know the best way to operate the building, and therefore the building is not able to achieve the savings that it is kind of projected to save. There is this gap in the market, regardless of the net zero conversation, but also adds to this, that we really need to focus on that education and awareness, that when you're designing or redesigning and retrofitting, whoever is taking over to operate should be able to understand what the system is, what it does, and what can it achieve, because otherwise you're designing a beautiful system that is not going to be used as it's designed, and the savings that
so the building does not realize its full,
exactly,
does not deliver its full potential.
Correct.
One last word, if I can get from you all, one last word, what would you say, Farah and Ahmed and Rabih?
Well, I guess since I'm already on mute and talking, I think you know, speaking for the EGBC and the Emirates, I think we are in a very, very good standing to take big strides in this market. And I think, as we all mentioned, there are two main things. Number one, education and awareness, and understanding what, you know, these systems mean, but also like we should all be working together. So I can't be designing something, and, you know, like it's an integrated approach and efforts that is needed to realize net zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabih.
Yeah, I've been in the industry for a long, long time. When I used to talk about a green building, people thought I'm talking about the color green. So there is a huge shift in mentality today, seriously. there is a huge shift, which is an opportunity. And the blessing of the COVID-19, if I'm allowed to say that, it's really allowing us to rethink the well-being, and the well-being are in the core of the next generation of the thinking. It's an opportunity. On top of that, I need to add that this is require a lot of emotional intelligence, and this is require a lot of gender. Maybe my fellow men will shoot me for that, but I've employed so many employees, nothing better than the female gender when it comes to emotional intelligence. So this is an opportunity for the next generation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for voting for us. Ahmed.
Okay, so the final takeaways, I would say, first of all, regulation-wise, I think we should start thinking about not increasing the amount of buildings that will need to be retrofitted. In other words, we should start targeting the new buildings that to comply with the net zero requirements, in order not to increase on the stock that will need to be retrofitted later on if we want to reach the 2050 target. And we need then to start working on as well simultaneously to be working on the stock that needs retrofit. And I think having pilot projects like the one we did and expanding on that with net zero in mind, and maybe do projects that target neighborhoods, pilot projects that target neighborhoods, that would be a great next step. And we need the targets.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Farah, Ahmed, and Rabih. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. I think we come to the end of our session. We did very well. We were only 3 minutes over time, but we did very well. Thank you all. And to all our listeners, please do not forget to interact with us on social media handles at WorldGBC, and hashtag for the Congress is hashtag MEA Green Buildings 2021. Thank you very much. Dominica, back to you.
Thank you, Habiba. And if I could just keep you for a minute longer, we've got a couple more minutes left before the next session. And I see that there's been a great question in the chat about embodied carbon and retrofitting. And as you might know, our next session is on embodied carbon. So I wonder if there's any, I mean, the question posed here is, you know, whether it's feasible to fit embodied carbon into retrofitting, but also if any of you have any questions that you'd like to kind of pose to the next panel as well, then feel free to share. Maybe just briefly, we can do a round, and then we'll move to our next session.
Yeah, Dominique, if I may.
Farah, would you like to take that?
Yes, if I may jump in. Definitely. I think we have, I mean, again, in this region, the topic of embodied carbon is relatively, you know, I mean, looking at, let's say, the UK and other countries, it has been something that's been discussed quite a lot more recently here. And I think we have a really good opportunity that whether we're actually targeting, let's say, specific percentages embodied carbon or not right now, I think it should be kind of tracked regardless, and then we can actually see the patterns, because chances are you're going to see that you know, the embodied carbon will be related hopefully positively to the interventions. So I think that is something that we should definitely be tracking as we're retrofitting projects.
Excellent. Anybody else? Any embodied?
I don't know if I will answer a question that was mentioned in here, the mindset issue by a lady, or shall I answer your question? I'm not sure which one to go for, to be honest, but it's an interesting question. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and basically about the mindset. There are two keys here: the private sector, which has to be in a powerful way, and the private sector mindset that need to be changed. And what I mean by that, there is a difference today. You don't invest and have a direct return. You need for the private sector to take on board a bit more of the government, I would say, scope or responsibilities. They need to start to be trained to invest and get indirect return from a symbiotic relation. And that's where the mindset will change. You can't do it by simply. So that is the simple thing. Private sector investing in the symbiotic relation. That's basically what should be done.
Excellent, thank you.
What about the academia role?
academia role is extremely important because really this is the next generation that over. They are the one who will set the regulation. They are the one who will set the culture. They are the one who will set to say this is the only way. This is the good practice. You know, today when you say to someone to build something, he will build it based on what they were trained to do. So we are boxed into what the universities or the vocation is being trained them to do. So we need to tackle that. But that return will be a long way to go. And we are, if we look at where we are, so that is definitely is a must. And the beauty about, let's say here, let's say within Europe, including the UK, is that partnership between universities and the commercial sector and the private sector on every single project. And that needs to be really increased ASAP. But that is a must, you know, but is ending quickly because of anyone in the education sector. We do understand how long would it take to change all this sort of parameters around education, but it's a must one. You know, it's the most important stakeholder.
Yeah, if I may just add to that, Dr. Habiba, I absolutely agree with you, Rabih, 100%. And I agree that, you know, obviously the results would be a bit years down the line. But as you said, one way to kind of bring those forward right now is to actually get students involved in research. And we do that here. So we team up with academic institutions and get all of those talents and ideas early while they're still developing, to kind of give them that exposure to what happens in the real world. Because a lot of them goes like, oh, we weren't really taught that. And then that's kind of, you know, like their interaction with what actually happens and with their learnings. Honestly, a beautiful thing evolves. And I've worked with many brilliant graduates, and I fully, you know, agree that academia has a huge role in this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for entertaining a couple more of those questions. With that, I will wrap us up. Thank you, Habiba. Thank you for all the panelists here. I think we had a really informative discussion, and it was wonderful to hear the very local perspectives in what it means to tackle retrofitting on that path to net zero. We all know that if we're going to meet our targets, we have to be able to address both new buildings and existing buildings. And it was wonderful to also hear the conversation touch on heritage value as well. So thank you again. We are now just ready for our next session. So as you recall, to join our next session, which is called Is Net Zero Embodied Carbon Within Reach? Just click on the sessions icon to the left of the screen and click on that session, and we will see you all there very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.